Hello and welcome to my class skill tier list. In this video I'm going to be outlining where I think the class mastery abilities place. You unlock these at level 5 in either basic advanced classes or unique advanced classes. So some of these everyone has access to, and then other ones are exclusive to specific characters. For the tiering, S tier is basically overpowered or extremely strong. A tier is really strong. B tier is decent. C tier is okay. D tier is not that useful. Okay. So the first thing we have is Air Raid from Wyvern Knight. If unit initiates combat from a space foe cannot enter, grants speed +5 during combat. So this one I would put at A, if only it was more consistent. It's basically Darting Blow, but with a condition. And it is good, but you need the foe to be near out of bounds spaces, which there are a decent amount of them, but you can't make use of this throughout an entire chapter. Like there's gonna be areas where you can make use of it, and there's also gonna be chapters where you can't use it at all. So it really depends on the map in question and the enemy positioning, but it is good. +5 speed is enough to double if you have the exact same speed as the enemy. So there's really no downside to using that. And Wyvern is a good class, so I'm also going to factor that in. All right, the next one is Allied Defense, Great Knight. If unit is between an ally and a foe, reduces damage to unit by 3 during combat with that foe. So essentially this reduces damage on an ally if the Great Knight is in front of that ally and the foe attacks like over you. This one I'm going to put it like B. It's decent, but it's not like huge value, and honestly I'm not so sure that Great Knight is really that good. I've tried running Great Knight and I'm skeptical on it. Maybe it is good if you run it, if you like heavily invest in it, but I'm skeptical. It also has 2 weaknesses. It has armor weakness and horse weakness, which isn't really nice. But I would say it's B tier. It's decent, but it's not gonna like carry a playthrough. It's just strong, I would say. All right, Back at You. Cupido. When countering, may deal extra damage. So it'll deal half the damage taken. Trigger equals % equals dex. So this isn't bad. I would put this at like B tier. It's super inconsistent because you have to be getting hit and it has to trigger off of dex. So those aren't easy. I mean, those are easy conditions to make, but I don't know that you want to be getting hit constantly on Cupido. I don't think it's the most durable thing, so I don't think that that's ideal. If it was like a tanky class or something that has like high health and high speed, maybe. But I feel like Cupido's speed is just kind of like average. And, if you get doubled, you could die. So I don't know that you want to get hit on Cupido. It's like an archer, so I would say that's like B. All right, the next one, Brave Assist. So when you're at full HP, you perform 2 chain attacks when you're within range. This one's at least A. Now, the argument for it being on S tier is that you have a bunch of these or like a lot of like chain attack spam. But the problem with Brave Assist is its range is 1 to 2. Now, you could get its range, or no, I don't know if Wind God works on non-bow weapons. I don't have the DLC, but here, let's Google this really quick. Let's see, Claude Wind God. There, whoops. Here we go, Bond Ring stats. I know there's a Bond Ring that increases range. Okay, +1 range with bows. Okay, so you can't increase the range. I'd say this is A tier. Probably better than this, though. Better than Air Raid. I think that's fair because the problem with Hero is if you level up, you're no longer, and you get +1 health, you're no longer at max HP, which can be annoying. If you take chip damage, this no longer works. You have to make sure that these units are topped off. You have to make sure that these units are positioned well so that you can make use of Brave Assist. And it's definitely not as flexible as something like Warrior, who has access to longbows and also could use Claude Wind Ring to increase the range of the backup attacks. So it's more flexible and has more reach. But it still is very strong and it still has a use case. All right, the next one is Careful Aim from Bow Knight. So if you do not move and you attack, so if you initiate combat without moving, grants hit plus 40. I would say this is like at least one of these. It's kind of, I mean, it's really good because hit plus 40 is like a guaranteed hit, but obviously you have to be defensive. So I'm kind of leaning more towards B tier. The upside, like, is Bow Knight really good enough that it's an A tier class? Honestly, I think I'd put it here. It's nice because it increases your hit rate, but you have to not be moving, so that's kind of a problem. Now you could always shoot and then canter, which could be okay. So maybe it's A tier. Because you can shoot and then canter, so you can still reposition. You just have to not move initially. And if you use long bows and normal bows and position well, or make use of tanks or terrain, or just pay attention to how far enemies can move, I could see this being like pure upside on Bow Knight. Plus 40 hit is not nothing. That's like almost a guaranteed hit. Bows are reasonably accurate, so giving plus 40 hit to them almost guarantees you will hit. So, all right, next one is Chaos Style. For Mage Knight, if unit initiates combat with a physical attack against a foe armed with magic or vice versa, grants speed plus 3 in combat. So basically, if you use magic on a physical attacker, or if you use physical on a magic attacker, you gain plus 3 speed. So that's pretty good, because you can use both of these things. I would say this is like a little bit better than Air Raid, because you can easily just look at the weapon your opponent's using. It's like, okay, they're using a spear or a bow or whatever, or knives. Hit them with magic, now you're plus 3 speed. If they're using, hit them with magic. And then if they're using magic, you just hit them with physical. And honestly, you would do that anyways. Like, you wouldn't hit an enemy mage with magic because their res is always higher. So you would want to hit them with a physical weapon anyways. And Mage Knight, depending on the unit, the strength could be good enough to justify doing this, and plus 3 speed pushes you closer to doubling. So it's pretty useful. It's pretty decent. Alright, Clear the Way. Griffin Knight. So Griffin Knight is a strong class, so units, space, and adjacent spaces have a movement cost of 1. So what does that mean? What does this do? So if you're on a non-flying unit, certain tiles reduce movement, like pillars and trees, water. Certain things reduce movement. So Clear the Way mitigates that. It allows your Griffin Knight to essentially act as like a bridge that prevents tiles from messing up their movements. And you also have to think about it in terms of the fact that it affects adjacent spaces. So it affects a plus shape that allows, like, let's say there's 3 tree tiles in a row, for example, and you put your Griffin Knight in the middle of them. When your units move through that Griffin Knight, it treats them as if there's no tree tiles there. So that's pretty huge. It's definitely not game breaking. I'd say it's like here. I'd say Brave Assist is a little bit better in terms of like what it does, but this is really good utility, and it's very nice to have. All right, Diffuse Healer, Martial Master. When unit is healed by a staff, all adjacent allies also recover 50%. I don't know how good Martial Master is. I haven't run it, but this ability seems decent. But obviously, having your allies all balled up is kind of like a prerequisite for this being useful. But it is good. I would say this is probably high B tier, just because I'm not sure how useful Martial Master is as a class on Maddening mode. Maybe it's decent, but as far as I can tell, it like lacks utility, and it's just kind of like a low movement damage unit that has like chain guard. So I'm not so sure that that's like the best thing. Obviously, Diffuse Healer is interesting. It allows you to AoE heal if a thing is damaged, so could be useful, but I don't think it's going to break the game. And there's other ways to do AoE healing, but this clearly isn't one of the strongest abilities. Okay. Divine Spirit. Units engage meter is shortened 1 step, and this is on Divine Dragon. So I'm not actually sure how much I like Divine Dragon as a class, because it's not that much better in terms of stat growths than Dragon Child. And also, there's better things that increase like your strength and speed growth. You have to consider that Divine Dragon class does not improve strength or speed or magic or anything like that. So when you class into it, it increases your stats, and I think it increases like res growth slightly in relation to Dragon Child and some other weird things like luck. So, I mean, in terms of reducing engage meter, that is good. I would say it's like low A tier, just because I don't think Divine Dragon is like the best class, but that is a decent ability. All right, next one is Fell Spirit, Fell Child. This will be a mild spoiler, so just mute the video for like 5 seconds. So Vale has this, and she is acquired later in the game. But aside from that, the chapters she's usable in, this is okay, and she's kind of like a B tier, maybe A tier unit. So I would say this is like low A tier. It's nice because it helps charge your meter, but it's on a unit who you can't really invest much in, and it's hard to min-max her because you get her so late. But it's not bad. Like getting one free meter bar per turn is pretty big upside. Okay, Golden Lotus, Avenir. During combat may prevent 50% of damage taken. Trigger percent equals dex. So this affects all damage, and it basically makes Alfred kind of a more like tanky paladin with less damage. I believe his personal class has less damage than paladin, but it has this unique passive that allows him to tank. Now, obviously, it's luck based, so if you get his dex to like, I don't know, 30 to 40, that has a decent chance of happening. But that being said, I think it's like high B tier. I'd rather just be an offensive ability like Sandstorm, because then if you use Braves, because like here's the problem with it, right? Dex, it's hard to get units dex above 50, so you're not going to be reasonably proccing this at above 50%, which is, a coin flip. So if he's not getting doubled because he actually has decent speed growth, if he's getting hit one time, the chance that this triggers is pretty low. And if you want to bank on it happening, like if you want to allow a bunch of enemies to hit him, you can't guarantee it'll happen. And if it just doesn't happen, he'll die. So like the upside of it being used as this like tanking thing is kind of not the case. So it's not as good as it seems. The only thing I could really see it being useful for is just reducing average damage. So by that I mean like throughout the course of a chapter, as he's getting hit, let's say he gets hit 10 times and he has 30 dex, so that's 30% chance to have damage. So out of 10 hits, 3 of them have reduced damage, which means he needs slightly less healing, but it doesn't negate healing, like he still needs healing, so it's not as good as it seems in that way. It might make him randomly tank things he shouldn't, but outside of that, it's not like game breaking. It's not gonna carry your playthrough, and it's not something you can trigger on purpose, because when you have things that trigger off of dex, like if you have 30 dex and you can use like a brave weapon and it's an attack, so like a brave weapon on 30 dex with Sandstorm is good because you're rolling 30% 4 times, and when you do that, you actually end up having like a 75% chance for it to occur like once, or it's something high like that. But when you're getting hit once or twice at most, the hit, like the proc rates aren't as reliable, and just having damage, I'd rather him take 0 damage. That would kind of make it a little bit better, but even then, like you don't know when it's going to happen. So I'd say it's like high B tier. Void Grasp, Ivy. When attacking with a tome, may deal extra damage equal to half of the foe's magic. Trigger percent equals dex. This, I would say, is S tier because it's pure upside and it happens a lot. Her dex is usually around like 20 to 30 throughout a run, and you can boost it. But this is one of these things where as you're attacking, she'll just randomly one round things that she couldn't. And it works on bosses, like it works on everything. There's really no downside to this. It's just extra damage. And even if you just look at it in terms of average extra damage, like as she's attacking, I would rather take average extra damage over average extra tanking, because damage kills things. And there have been so many times where this is just triggered and it just killed things that she could barely not one round, and it will pull through. So if you have even like 30% chance with 30 dex and you attack twice, I believe it's like a 50% chance it triggers. So if she's doubling things, there's a pretty high chance, there's like a coin flip even at lower dex that it happens. And then if you use Nova on her and she quads, something, there's a really high, it's like a 75% chance it happens. So it's actually really strong. And it's on a unit who's one of the best units in the game with like minimal effort and investment. So I would say that's S tier. Hobble from Wolf Knight. If the unit initiates combat with a knife, inflicts move -2 on a foe for 1 turn. I would say this is like medium A tier. This is good. This is definitely useful because this can be the difference between an enemy hitting one of your squishies or not, or an enemy hitting one of your slow units who will get doubled in 1-rounded. So this is useful, and it's just, you know, Wolf Knight's a decent class. It's viable, has daggers. It's pretty solid. It has decent movement. This is just a nice little utility. Ignis on Vidam. During combat, may add half of strength to magic damage or half of magic to all other damage. Trigger percent equals dex. I would say this is also S tier. I would say these damage increase abilities are just like pure upside. There's like no downside to having them. And also, they can trigger. Well, I don't know if Void Grasp can trigger on AoE attacks. Yeah, when attacking with. Alright, so Void Grasp can't, but Ignis can trigger when using things like Override and Saline. I always call her Saline, but it's like Saline solution. You know, like the saltwater drops you use in your nose. Saline. It can trigger on AoE attacks, like Torrential Blast, you know, the water attack Corrin has. I always forget the name. It's like Torrential something. But it can trigger per enemy on that. It can trigger when overriding with Levin Sword, which is a really good strategy to use with Saline. So it rolls each time, and her dex gets to like 20 to 40, and you can pump her with dex books to give her +2, and there's like a few, so you could get her like +6, and you can also throw dex plus whatever on her if you want to increase the trigger rate as well. But this is a really strong ability, and this happens all the time, and she easily doubles a lot of like armor enemies. So even just attacking armor, it'll boost her damage, or attacking slow enemies or medium speed enemies, she usually can double them. All right, Luna. I would say this is S tier. With a Brave Bow and 30 to 50 dex. Also, so this is on Alchrist. Also consider, he has like 70% dex growth rate on his class. Like when you add his base growths plus his unique class growths up. So every 10 levels, this dude's getting 7 dex. And throughout a playthrough, if you heavily invest in your like hard carry units, which you should be, you can easily get him 40 levels, like 40 to 50 levels. And by the end of that, he'll be very high dex. He'll be like mid 40 dex. And with a Brave Bow and decent speed, which he does have decent speed growth, he can quad things and trigger this consistently. So what it does, when making an attack, may ignore half of foe's defense/res. Trigger percent equals dex. So he can use Radiant Bow to hit through enemies who have high defense but low res. He can use normal bows to hit medium defense, like enemies that have medium in both. And he can also use strong bows to hit foes that have low defense. So he has a lot of options. But I would say these damage abilities are a little bit better than the utility ones because killing things is good. And a lot of times killing things is better than like reducing its move by 2. I would say it always is. Because like, you know, now you just don't have to deal with it anymore. But Brave Weapons plus these things is absolutely insane. And even at 30% trigger rate, if you can quad, it's like 75% because it re-rolls 30% 4 times. So that's another way of looking at it. And also there's always the chance that you get multiple triggers when you double or Brave or when you quad. So if you get like 2 Luna triggers, it'll deal like an insane amount of damage. Now that's not going to happen as often as just single one throughout a quad, but it has a decent chance of happening the higher your dex goes. All right, Merciless on Warrior. Unit deals plus 50% damage against broken foes. I would say this is like, probably like medium. I would put it like here. Like A tier. So this is good. It is on a class who has accuracy issues and basically needs engravings because of axes. But if you have a unit with good dex, or you can also use bows with this because it doesn't specify you have to use axes. Warrior has access to bows and axes. So if you break something, you can shoot it with a bow as well. But plus 50% damage is a lot. Now, obviously, this doesn't work on most bosses, aside from emblem rings, which I believe can be broken. But yeah, Or actually, no, I don't think they can be broken. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head if emblem rings during paralogs can be broken. I know they can be frozen in place. I don't know that they can be broken. They still might have veteran plus. But that being said, this is good against breaking. You break an opponent, especially if it's an enemy with high defense or high res or something, and you need to one-shot it or you want to deal big damage. You do have to set this up, and it does require breaking, but it's not. It's good. It's strong. It's viable. It's on a class that's decent as well. All right, no distractions. Sniper, crit plus 10 during combat with the foe that can't counter. So Sniper is all about crit builds, and crit builds are good. I think people are under the impression I believe crit builds are bad just because I don't sing praises for them. I haven't run a ton of crit builds yet. I'm on my 3rd playthrough, and I'm going to start trying them. I don't think they're bad, though, and I've never said they're bad. So, yeah. All right, so Sniper, it'd be a crit build. I would put it on higher end of A tier. Plus 10 crit. Like, if you're a sniper, you're going to be shooting things that aren't counterattacking. And if you put a crit engraving on one of your bows, plus this, you could be hitting plus 30, plus 40 crit rate just from shooting something who can't counterattack plus an engraving. And then if you factor in, other modifiers like crit modifiers and luck and stuff like that, this will boost your crit rate up. Now, I'm not sure how viable crit bow is. There is killer bow, so it could be very viable. I would rather have these personally because I don't know that Sniper is the best class. It's not a bad class, though. It's solid. It's not as good as it was in 3 Houses, that's for sure. But it's decent. The next one is Thief. It has Pass. Pass. Wait, is Pass? Hold on. Have Thieves had Pass? I haven't noticed this. Hold on. Let me look at something really quick. What level do you... I think you have to be a high level, though, don't you? It's different. Thief is weird, right? Oh, let me see when it gets Pass. Yeah, I guess they do get Pass. Okay, so Thieves get Pass. I haven't used Thieves yet. I used them briefly in my 2nd Maddening run, but in my 3rd one, I'm going to be running Yunaka full time. So this is just why I'm not familiar with it. But foes do not block this unit's movement. How useful is that? I would say middle of A tier. I would say here. It would be more useful if hyper aggressive play was enabled, but it can be difficult to make things like this useful. The game tends to like you to turtle or to kind of ball your team up and fight a bunch of enemies, kill a bunch of enemies, slow push, or warp strat. So if you're doing a warp strat, you don't need this, or if you're doing a slow push, you don't need this, but it is still good. Now, depending on how you're using this, if you're moving through a bunch of enemies to get to an avoid tile and then tanking them, that's A tier. Yeah, it seems like it might just get you killed more often than help you, but it's still useful. Even if just for moving, to get to a target, I would say it's medium. It's a utility. It's medium A tier, I would say. All right, Pincer attack. Halberdier. Probably one of the best skills in the game, if not the best skill in the game. This is crazy. Halberdier fixes any unit because it allows that unit to always double regardless of its build and the enemy's speed and the unit's speed. So it doesn't care about speed. As long as there's an ally on the opposite side, you will always double. And you can also guarantee quadding, even if the weight is insane on your brave weapons. So Halberdier might end up being one of the best classes in the game for non-unique units, just because of the fact that it can consistently double. You can have 0 speed and you can double in Halberdier. That's the upside of this class. So you can have an extremely high strength unit with terrible speed growth, throw them on Halberdier, and as long as you attack, canter behind an enemy, and then follow up with the Halberdier, you can just nuke things down like it's nobody's business. And honestly, it might be the best class in the game because it's so crazy. You can make a brave weapon. You can put crazy engravings on brave weapons that boost their damage on a high strength unit who has terrible speed on purpose, like knowing that they have terrible speed, and now you're doubling with like high damage brave weapon. Well, really you're quadding, like guaranteed, and there's nothing they can do about it. It guaranteed happens. It's absolutely insane. Honestly, I think it needs nerfed. It's really that strong. It's really that strong. I tried Halberdier out on Lapis, and she actually was really good. I gave her, a heavy, high damage spear, and she was able to double with it consistently and one run a lot of enemy units on like Maddening. So, and Lapis is low strength, so pretty crazy. It doesn't care about the enemy speed. That's the thing. Like, you can go up to an enemy Swordmaster who's extremely fast and just double them anyways, as long as there's something on the other side. So, pretty crazy. All right. Pivot, Paladin. Used to move to opposite side of an adjacent ally. This is like utility movement. Paladin's a decent class. I would say it's like here. I'd say it's like here. It's useful. Reposition stuff is useful. You can't go wrong. It's helpful to have. It's nice. All right, Reforge, Royal Knight. This one's kind of weird. So if unit's HP is 11 or more, and an adjacent ally is broken after combat, sacrifices 10 HP and removes the break status. So it's debatable as to how good this is. Essentially, it allows a non-tanking unit who can be broken by the weapon triangle, or even the martial fist, dagger, bow, whatever, triangle, dagger, bow, tome, getting broken by fist situation. It allows them to unbreak a unit, but then they sack 10 HP. In terms of utility, I would say this is like high B tier, because really the only use case of this, of Reforge, would be removing break on enemy phase so that the unit can counterattack other enemies. But if you're using a unit who's counterattacking a lot of enemies, they either need to be an avoid tank, they need to be bond shielded, or they need to be a physical or res tank, right? Like a res tank to tank mages, a physical tank to tank physical, a bonded shield to tank anything, or an avoid tank to tank most things aside from mystical, who usually hit through your avoid tanking. So removing break is useful, but it's definitely not A tier. And it's also in a class that I'm skeptical of, like Royal Knight. I don't know. I feel like Royal Knight's basically just a bad Griffin Knight. So, I mean, maybe there is some use case, but I'd rather be on Paladin because it's just more damage. Yeah, or I would rather be Paladin, Wyvern, or Griffin Knight. Okay. Run through, Swordmaster. Use to attack an adjacent foe, then move to the space opposite of that foe. So this actually combos well with Halberdier, because if there's like an enemy line that you can't get past, now all of a sudden you can attack and then move through them. So I would say this is like, it's definitely not S tier, but I'd say it's up there. Like middle, I think middle of A tier is fair. Because outside of setting up Halberdier, this isn't the best thing. It's just decent because it allows you to reposition, which can be useful. So like, let's say you move 5 tiles, right? And then you use this. So you attack and then you move the opposite side. You've effectively moved +2 tiles. Actually, hold up. Maybe this is S tier. Hold up. This is movement increase. Maybe this is S tier. I would say low end of S tier. Yeah, it's because like outside of Halberdier setup, it's also a movement increase for free on a class that is a crit machine with high dodge. So kind of pretty decent, I would say. Just for the movement increase, the fact that you're probably going to crit it, the fact that you can move further things. So all right, so here's the scenario. You're on a 5 move class. You move 5. You attack an enemy. You crit it. You kill it. You move to the opposite side. +2 movement from doing that because you move past the enemy space and then you end up on another space. That's 2 extra move. Then you canter. That's 2 extra move. You are now a Swordmaster with 9 move. That's pretty big upside. That's like low S tier, I would say, because mobility is important and being able to get in and out is huge. So if there's enemies that are kind of in like a U shape and you hit the enemy that's the furthest away, you move to the opposite side, then canter 2. You're now moving outside of range of other enemies, which means that you could be a little bit more aggressive than you should be allowed to. So movement tech is useful, and on Swordmaster, I think Swordmaster on like Kagetsu is pretty strong. So that would be a pretty good use case, plus a crit build. So yeah, I would say this is like low S tier. All right, Sandstorm. So Sandstorm, I would say is like better than these other ones. All right, why would I think it's better than these? Tamara has decent dex growth, but the way Sandstorm works is it eventually starts out damaging crits. So you can get it to trigger pretty consistently. Tamara has really good speed growth and high defensive stat. Her strength is kind of like medium to like low average, but the fact that you can consistently trigger Braves with her high speed and quad a lot of enemies means that she's going to be getting a lot of sandstorms off. And she's definitely faster than these units, than Ivy, than Saline, than Alchrist. She's way faster than them. She also has very high defense, and Sandstorm works off of her defense. So I've used her. I didn't even overinvest in her. I just ran her and decided she was going to be one of my hard carries. And she was consistently one-rounding things with Sandstorm, more so than I think these units would. Maybe he could one-round, but Sandstorm also hits way harder than these abilities on average. It literally outdamages crits once you hit, like, I think 30 defense and up. But also consider the fact that when you're at 30 defense, enemies hit almost nothing on you. And when you're on a fast unit who doesn't get doubled, they're not doubling you and you tank physical. There were times in endgame when enemies would ignore Tamara, like, and attack other units who I thought were like reasonably tanky. Like they would hit like fives on her and stuff, and like chapter 24 and 25 is pretty crazy. So she becomes like this fast, tanky damage unit, and it's absolutely insane. Now, is Sandstorm better than Pincer attack? Um, Pincer attack can be used on anyone, so I'd say that makes it slightly better, just slightly. I do prefer Sandstorm because the Pincer attack requires other allies, whereas Sandstorm you can just use it, but there is like the RNG aspect to it. But you can mitigate that when you hit like 30 plus dex just by using brave weapons. But I would say Pincer attack is maybe slightly better on the average. All right, self-healing High Priest. Unit can heal itself with healing staves. I don't care. No, D tier. How is this useful? Do they know vulnaries exist? All right, actually I don't understand this at all, because the only use case where this would be even relevant would be if you were in the middle of a plus shape formation and you needed healing and everything around you needed healing, and you had Micaiah popped, and then you used, the AoE heal on yourself. Then it's like okay, but like you could always just AoE heal allies in a plus shape, and then you also can benefit from that. So like the only use case where you're using Micaiah to AoE heal is completely negated by the fact that you can also get hit by your own AoE heals if you just position your units correctly. So there's really no upside to using this. And then healing yourself with a staff, it's like why? You can just use an elixir. You can just use a vulnerary. I don't get it. There's really no reason to use this. Like when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's disappointing. It's like how is it good? Like I don't get it. Just doesn't seem good at all. All right, let's see what else. This next one. Smash Berserker. Okay, when using a smash attack, pushes the target 2 spaces instead of 1. Smash plus. Now, I think using smash weapons for the most part is kind of a meme. Unless you're like tanking on an enemy phase and then just counterattacking on slow units for big damage, then it makes sense. But using them to move enemies around, I don't really see the upside in a lot of cases. Now there is an upside in some situations, but pushing them 2 spaces instead of 1, I mean that increases the chance you can break them, because the way smash weapons work is if an enemy hits a wall or another ally, like another enemy, then they will bounce off of them and become broken. So in that way, it enables more breaking with using smash weapons, but I'm not so convinced that smash weapons are that good. And you also have to consider Berserker is a slow class. So if you use a smash weapon, you're getting doubled, and if you're getting doubled, you're either almost dead or you're dead. So I'm gonna say this is like C tier. I don't really see the upside. I don't think, and I haven't even been seeing arguments in favor of smash weapons being good for the movement mechanic. I don't think most people value that or find it useful. The only arguments I really see about smash weapons are using them on enemy phase on a tank who's slow, who can't double, and then just counterattacking for big damage, which makes sense. So I don't think it's that useful. All right, Soul class Successor. Oh, is this Diamants, right? Yeah, Diamant. Okay. That's what I thought, but because I haven't used him yet. Unit may recover 50% of damage dealt, trigger percent equals dex. Um, Interesting. I would say this is like high B. It's because it's a dex trigger, and you could use like a brave weapon if you can get his speed up, potentially. Healing is decent, but I would rather just kill the enemy. You know, I mean, it's not bad. It's seemingly fine. There's nothing too crazy about it. There's nothing super standout about it. Because it's like a low percent chance of healing. Yeah, it's not blowing my mind. It's definitely not going to lend itself to breaking the game. Yeah, because like even if you try to use it for tanking, like relying on RNG for tanking, like during enemy phase, you're not quadding on counterattack. Like that's really the only use case I could think of for like breaking the game. Um, yeah, because like let's say he has like 30 dex, 30% chance to heal on hit, and let's be generous and say he doubles everything that attacks him, which in maddening mode is probably not going to happen. He'll double like some things, but a lot of the fast enemies like Swordmaster, you're never doubling those. They have like 40 speed. That being said, it could be okay in some situations, but it's RNG dependent and would not be that reliable. And unlike Sandstorm, who's on a unit who's very fast and can consistently quad throughout an entire maddening run, and I've confirmed this, and she's also basically, she one-turned Chapter 25's boss mostly by herself by getting danced. I had her beat the final boss like with Sandstorm triggers just to see if I could do it, and I did. So it's not that level of usefulness. It's just like kind of nice. So I'd say B tier. Okay, what is this one? What is this? I have like a list pulled up. This happened to me before. Oh wait, no, it's not that. Let's see. What is that? All right, I'm gonna skip this one for now. I'm not sure. Oh wait, no, that's not it either. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this one for now. I don't know this one off the top of my head. I know World Tree. I know Special Dance. I know Spell Harmony. Okay, so let's do Special Dance, or is it Curious Dance? No, I think that's special. Yeah, it's Special Dance. Okay, they use like the same icon recolored. All right, if unit uses Dance, grants Dex /Speed /Luck +3 to target for 1 turn. Probably the best ability in the game, because your Dancer allows you to use your best unit or any of your best units twice, and giving it a stat increase is literally pure upside, because instead of having 2 of those best units deployed, you now essentially have 2 of those best units deployed plus upside of abilities like this. And getting extra dex, +3 dex is +6 hit, and I think +3 crit. So I think you get +6 crit from the luck and the dex, +6 hit, and you also get +3 speed, which can be the difference between doubling or not. So Dancer is definitely the best class in the game in this game, and it's pure upside. So I would say it's better than Pincer Attack because it enables things like Pincer Attack. It enables things like Sandstorm. It enables all of the best things. It also enables Brave, Spam. It enables literally everything. If you have a tactic, it enables it. All right, Spell Harmony. On Sage, if unit initiates combat with a tome, grants attack equal to the number of tome users, equal to the number of adjacent allies with tomes. I would say this is like high A tier because this is just free damage. Like if you have 2 to 3 mages and you're just attacking things, this triggers quite a lot. So even if you just have another mage, it's like +1 damage. That's pretty good. If you have two mages next to you, that's +2 damage for free every attack. So if you use like Nova and you quad, that's +8 damage just for there being 2 other things, or +4 damage for there being 1. And you're gonna have like, 2 to 3 tome users on average on most team comps. So it's pretty strong. All right, World Tree. When you use this staff, may not consume a use. Trigger percent equals dex. I would say this is like medium A tier. It's good. So it's good when it triggers on like warp and rewarp and rescue and stuff like that. And it also is good because it helps your economy. So this is on Hortensia. It helps your economy by saving you money by not consuming staff uses. So on the average, it's good. So even if she has like 30% chance to trigger it, it still just saves you money, which is objectively useful. And also sometimes it'll save you or extend the life of like a warp staff. And I have had it trigger on warps and rescues before. But if you want to break it down in terms of raw numbers or like well, not raw numbers, like simple uses. So like let's say you have a staff with 10 uses, you'll basically get 13 if you have 30 decks, because that's 30%, like saving 30%. And then if you have a staff with 5 uses, you'll have 6.5, so you'll have 6 to 7 uses on average with it. So it gives you a little bit extra bang for your buck, which is pretty nice. And there are a finite amount of warp, rescue, and rewarps. So being able to consume more of those, like to have more of those, is huge upside. All right, the next one. Swap, general. Used to switch places with an adjacent ally. I would say this is like high B tier. Mostly because I think general isn't like the best class. I don't like its 4 move. Swap is, now in terms of abilities, this is decent, but I don't know that it's better than these. I feel like these are on better classes and are just more useful. This I just think is decent. I still don't know what this is off the top of my head, and I don't see an icon for it. Let me try to pull up another thing. FE Engage class skills. This is just skills. Here we see. Maybe it's on Saren's Forest. I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure. This might just be like, yeah, I'm not seeing this. I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know what class this is. Or maybe this is Holly. I'm looking through all the icons right now. Yeah, I don't see it. I'll go through one more. Sometimes people add an extra thing. Maybe this is a class skill. I don't know. It's like some dumb article. I love when articles pop up for when you're researching things where you just want information. Every skill in Fire Emblem Engage. All right, let's see. All right, some of these don't have icons, so that's potentially not useful. Yeah, I'm not seeing this. If I can't, so if you know what this is, let me know. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I don't recognize it. I'm not finding it on any lists. There's like a ton of icons as well. All right, so it's not on that list. Yeah, it's not on the Gameco 8 list. It's not on Saren's Forest, so I have no idea what that is. But yeah. Oh, I can't boot up the game right now because I'm using the same thing that uses the game. But yeah, if you let me know what this is, or if you know what this is, let me know and I can comment the tier. But I don't think this is. I don't know what the hell this is. To be honest, I don't recognize this at all. All right, so that's it for the tier list for these. Definitely let me know if you agree or disagree and why on some of these. Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.